இந்த அமர்வினுடைய சிறப்பு விருந்தினர் திரு அபிஞானந்தா அவர்கள் உங்களுடைய கரகுலியோடு.
Jai Shri Krishna, எல்லோருக்கும் வணக்கம். And so today I would like to speak about the future of Bharata and what is going to happen to the country overall in the longer run. Bharata has been a beacon of the civilizations throughout the world. It has been the cradle of civilizations. So today I would like to speak about the future of Bharata. What is going to happen to this country? Where are we heading as a civilization? And what are we going to expect over the next several years? And what we have to do as Bharatiyas, as Indians to take this country forward and to transform this country further from where we are at the moment. So there is a very beautiful shloka in Sanatana Dharma. It says, Uttaram yat samudrasya himadreshchaiva dakshinam varsham tad bharatam proktam bharati yatra samskriti. So this verse is very powerful, and it says that this entire subcontinent is known as Bharata, south of the Himalayas and the north of the Indian Ocean. It's a beautiful land full of pious and ancient developments, sages who have given us wonderful wisdom, passed on to us, divine insights from the past with great research, and who have passed down to us principles and morals from the ancient times. So this is one of the most wonderful countries that has ever existed, a civilization that held more than 30% of the global GDP over the last 2,000 years. It's only now that we are facing a decline. It's only now that we have seen difficulties over the last 200 years. But in the past, Bharata was such a glorious and beautiful nation, and we have contributed so much to the progress of this world. So today I'd like to present to you, since I have received many questions on where are we heading as a civilization? Why are we here in the first place? And what is going to happen to our country in the future? How are the people of Bharata going to be in the future? And what our ancient sages have taught us about nation building. So this would be the main subject of today's event, and a couple of important predictions about what would happen in the future are going to be discussed today. So before I begin, I'd like to thank the organizers of the program for having me here, and especially Dilip ji and all the other organizers. And I'd also like to thank them for allowing me to have this opportunity to listen to the wonderful voice of Surya Narayanan ji. It was very beautiful listening to the concert as well. And so let's begin. And so to understand the future of the civilization or any civilization, we first need to understand the past. For this, we have to look at astrological patterns and historical data. So when we look at the astrological patterns, we're easily able to understand what is going to happen in the future. We look at the patterns of Guru, of Shani, that is Jupiter, Saturn, the Sun, Mars, and Moon, and constantly observe how they change and correlate them with things that happen in actual history. So when we study this over several hundreds of years, we're able to see which civilization will grow, which civilization will decline, and what will happen next in the future of the world. So after having carefully analyzed this, I have put together a little summary of what is going to happen to this particular country. So what are astrological patterns, first of all? Astrological patterns are based on a theory of cyclicity. So everything that rises once must fall again. Everything that rises has to decay. Everything that grows has to decay. This is a law of nature, and this is the law of mankind itself. So it's very, very important to understand this first. Nothing continues at a linear pace. Nothing is growing eternally. Except for spirituality, nothing can be eternal. Everything like wealth, fame, power, or prestige, everything has a cycle. And that is what we call the theory of cyclicity. And then there is a theory of graha influence. In astrology, we believe very firmly that the grahas or the planets have a very strong impact on the earth. Now, of course, there is a lot of skepticism regarding this, and to prove that, over the last 5 years, I've been working to establish the connection between celestial events and things that happen on Earth. So today I'll just give a basic and brief snippet on how astrological patterns actually impact global events on the Earth and how it's been used to actually predict real events that have happened in society over the last few years. So, first of all, today we're going to discuss a very simple pattern, basically. It is the pattern of Jupiter and Saturn. This will be very important in understanding what will happen to our country in the future. Because the patterns of Jupiter and Saturn are very rare. Jupiter takes about 12 years, 11.6 years to complete an entire revolution of the solar system around the sun. And Saturn takes about 29.47, that's about 30 years to do a similar revolution. Now, when you put these two figures together, every 20 years approximately, Jupiter and Saturn, they come together. This is known as the Great Conjunction. It's also mentioned in our ancient scriptures. The Greeks have recorded it, the Vedic sages have recorded it, and even several ancient scientists have recorded these combinations, and several sages have meditated and told us the impact of these combinations. So every 20 years, there is a very strong influence that changes mankind fundamentally. Yes, so first of all, these Jovian and Saturnine cycles are 60 years, 220 years, 240 years, 480 years, and several more different cycles. So currently we are going through a Jupiter-Saturn cycle particularly, and this is a very important cycle. And every 20 years there is a significant change that occurs. So when you look at how these grahas come together, every 20 years human thought changes, human ideas change, and everything about us fundamentally changes in such a time frame. So a couple of things I'd like to explain in this is that whenever there is a conjunction between these grahas, you see very strong technological progress, you see great scientific advancements, you see the rise of new world orders, you see the collapse of old world orders, you see the rise of new businesses and new technology. You also see the rise of great spiritual concepts, you see the rise of philosophy and scientific advancement. At the same time, there are also negative effects to each great conjunction. Sometimes you have dramatic collapse of old social orders, and sometimes you have the birth of tyrants and villains who manipulate society. Sometimes there's also great wars that happen during such time frames. But one thing is certain, there is almost always severe transformation, powerful transformation. Human ideas change, human thought changes, philosophies change. And we have seen several expressions of this that have happened over the last several years. So first of all, I would just like to give a small example of 2020. So in 2019, I was studying patterns of the grahas, and I just came across a very specific pattern wherein all the grahas were coming close to each other. All the planets were coming very close to each other, especially Jupiter and Saturn, from two different directions directly into the sign of Capricorn. And this particular transition, I believed, could cause a major transformation in the world. So in 2019, I uploaded a video on YouTube stating that there's going to be severe transformation in 2020, and a dangerous event is most likely to happen, either a world war or a pandemic, and a lot of people would unfortunately die during such a time frame, and the world would completely change. So these were certain predictions made for 2020. So when you look at 2020, Jupiter and Saturn came really, really close to each other. A lot of transformation occurred in just that 1 year. Can you all remember life before 2020 and life after 2020? The entire world has changed. Several old world orders have broken down. The age of the internet has advanced rapidly. Technology has progressed rapidly. Politics has changed forever. Socioeconomics has changed forever. Geopolitics has changed forever. And there have been new powers that have risen as well. A new disease came and swept away lives of millions of people. So 2020 has undoubtedly been one of the most transformative events. And no other science, including history or science or archaeology or any other science, was able to predict this except Jyotisha or astrology. Astrology was able to give us a direction into how this year is going to be. But if you think 2020 is just one example, I'd like to present to you all a few other major examples of this particular event. 2020 was obviously the closest great conjunction. It was a very important event. Some of the other events are in 1921. In 1921, we saw one of the most important great conjunctions that took place. Immediately, there was a rise of communism throughout the world. We saw the USSR being founded the very next year, the first communist state in the world, and we also saw the Communist Party of China, that is the CCP, which was also founded exactly in the same year. Similarly, we've also seen several other events. For example, the previous very powerful Great Conjunction was in 1603 and 1623. That's when we saw the great rise of the colonial powers and the misery that they inflicted upon the whole world. This was a time when even our country faced declines. But as I discussed earlier, everything that faces a decline has to experience growth again. And everything that faces growth has to see decline again, especially when we're talking about great civilizations. And Bharata will certainly grow. But to make that point, I'd like to show you a few such combinations. So if you look at previous great conjunction, this was another time when Jupiter and Saturn came together in 712 AD. That's when Bharata was attacked by the first foreign invaders. There was a major Islamic invasion in the country. And there was also some of the most deadly events that took place in the country, including the siege of Somnath, in which massacres happened in our country. That marked the decline of this nation. Over the last 1,000 years, we've been under different forms of difficulties, and our people have suffered immensely. But it's time to change now. And this was one of the darkest time frames for our country, gradually. Similarly, there were also several other important events that took place in great conjunctions. 1206 was one of the most monumental great conjunctions. It was that year that Genghis Khan was elected as the leader of his country by his tribal people, and they took over about 60% of the existing world at that time. And they transformed the world. About, many millions of people were slaughtered throughout this transformation. But what is very clear is that every 200 years and every 400 years, there is one major event that takes place which changes the world completely. Today, we are at the cusp of such an event. 2020 is a very, very important event, and we are just at the cusp of it. A lot of things are going to change completely. This is an era of technological progress. There'll be rapid scientific advancements. The world as we know it will completely change. In the last 2,000 years, the amount of progress has been done is, dwarfed compared to what progress we have made over the last 400 years in terms of science, in terms of technology and everything else. But the good news is that this progress is not limited to the West. It is moving to the East. Very soon, civilizations like Bharata, civilizations already, we are seeing it in China, we're seeing it happening in the Eastern nations, we're seeing prosperity moving gradually towards the East, and we're going to see more of this in the next couple of decades. Today's discussion will be very brief, and I've just put it in a very simple way, but those of you who are very interested in the mathematical concepts behind these cycles, I'd strongly recommend you can visit the website to understand more about the mathematics behind what is being discussed today. But purely from an astrological angle, we are seeing some very amazing things that will happen. Many things will be totally unrecognizable. The future is going to be very exciting and very positive, very bright. But at the same time, we are likely to see certain negative ramifications as well. We're going to see borders that will be redrawn across the globe. Countries, the maps will change. The situations of countries that we see today are no longer going to remain the same. The world is again entering an era of complete transformation, and this I've been discussing since 2019. None of the borders we're seeing today are going to remain very stable over the next many years. Many transformations will happen. The laws will change in several countries, especially in Africa and India. You're going to see rapid transformation. Institutions will be modified, and commerce will be redefined, and several things will happen. But as Bharatiyas, we must take this in our hands. We must try to transform this country in a way that moves towards progress instead of in a fragmented manner. So I'd like to present a few insights from our ancient scriptures on how we can transform this country. And of course, all of you here have wonderful ideas too, I'm sure, on how you'd like to contribute to the progress of our nation and our civilization as Bharatiyas, and how, if Bharata grows, the entire world prospers. At no point of time in history has the progress of Bharata stopped the progress of any other country. For at least 2,000 years, we were representing more than 25% of the global economy. For several hundred years within that, we were representing over 30% of the global economy. During all of these times, we did not cause strife, genocide, massacres, or anything in the world around us. There were wars within our country, but there was never widespread destruction across the globe. And that is a fiat that we have achieved as Bharatiyas because of our principles as Bharatiyas. Ahimsa, Satyam, that is, non-violence and aram, the concept as Sage Thiruvalluvar has mentioned. These concepts have made us one of the most formidable civilizations in the last 400 years. And I'm sure that we will continue this legacy forward with some more suggestions from our Vedas. So this will happen. At the same time, over the next 20 years, we will see some strife, some internal difficulties. We will see disunity. We will see a lot of problems as well. But I am confident that each of these problems will herald a new era of progress for us. And hence, we have to be optimistic about our country. We have to work towards goals that can help our people progress, especially the downtrodden, to progress and to rise beyond. And that's when we can truly make this country a superpower again. So first of all, of course, I would like to present this time frame and how important it is overall. So we're going to see a few insights from the ancient Bharatiya scriptures, throughout the scriptures, a few things. So the first thing which is recommended across our scriptures is transforming institutions. Institutions presently in our country are fixed with a colonial mindset. We are stuck, and most of them are extractive in nature. This needs to be transformed, and that's when our country can progress. I've spoken with several important individuals who are involved in the progress of several nations, and one important thing that has always come up is unless you transform the institutions of a country fundamentally, it's very difficult to lead a country on the path of progress. So everything must be supportive. And if you look at the Tirukkural as well, the sage Thiruvalluvar has very clearly mentioned how a king or a ruler or a country must govern itself, and how justice must be delivered perfectly, how one should not harm the citizens, rather one should protect the citizens, and how one should uphold the rule of law and not complicate it further. Currently, our systems are very complicated, and this will change. I'm quite confident, purely from an astrological angle, none of my personal opinions here, but I'm quite confident this will happen. Secondly, we're also going to see transformation in terms of the education in this country. We are going to see it, and we should also contribute towards it. We should teach the next generations as well as the present youth about the importance of our civilization, about the importance of science, technology, and several other enterprises and fields. We should also encourage them to learn about our heritage and our culture. We should encourage a culture of hard work as well. And it's already happening. We are seeing it throughout our country. And we have these positive omens. We are on the cusp of growth. That is for sure. So when we look at another important element, how we're going to prosper is we need to teach the next generations about our glorious past, because some people say, why is the history of the past needed for the future? I would like to say it is very much needed. Only if we understand our history do we have a bearing to move towards. We have a target to move towards. We know where we were in the past and what we need to do to achieve that in the modern context. But we, as a civilization, as individuals, as Indians, as Bharatiyas, we need to understand our previous history. This is very, very important. Look at the great Chola Empire. Look at the different powerful empires that ruled this country. The Guptas, the Mauryas, and so many other great emperors who transformed the economy of this country, who created new branches of knowledge, and who spread peace and spirituality throughout the globe. Even today, several civilizations across the world remember Bharata as a civilization that was the cradle of humanity. So we must reach that level back again. We must. We have gone through decline. I already explained why we experience decline. Everything that rises, it must decline. But now, everything that is declined must rise again. And that's what I believe will happen to this place. And a very important, essential thing for this is that in our society, students, especially the youth, must learn our ancient languages. This will open up avenues, opportunities to understand the past even better, especially Tamil and Sanskrit. Once you learn these two languages, you're going to transform the way you look at the world, because you'll be able to reach through so many scriptures, you'll be able to read through our past and look into our future. So that's why I would strongly recommend that as well. And first of all, and the last thing, but most important thing in the progress of our country, to make it holistic, is to live a principled life. So our great sage Thiruvalluvar again says, Arathinung Akkamum illai, Adanai Marattalin Ungillai Kedu. And Sirappu eenum, Selvamum meenum, Arathinung Akkam Yavano irku. This beautiful verse of the great sage says that aram is the most important thing. Virtue is the most important thing. Virtue is what brings us prosperity and fame. We must not try to manipulate others in order to gain prosperity. Our country is greater than that. We can create prosperity purely by inculcating values, by strengthening education, by transforming institutions, by living principled life, and society respects individuals who live a principled life. And as a country, if we're able to do this, that will be awesome. Every single individual in this country should read the Tirukkural, should read the Ramayanam. The Ramayanam has amazing lessons on how to govern a nation. And one might ask, why are we discussing this particular topic today? The reason is that a lot of you here are instrumental in the progress of this nation. You have the resources necessary to transform this nation. You can start from your own family, you can progress to several sections of society, and as the Rotary organization, you will definitely be able to penetrate society in a stronger manner than just me as an individual or other individuals, right? So this is the reason why we're discussing this particular concept today. And of course, very important thing is the upliftment of the poor, and this has been stressed in the Bhagavata Puranam, in the Ramayanam, in several other scriptures. Helping and uplifting the poor is an important way to transform this nation. And the Rotary organization is doing amazing things in this field, and there are several other wonderful organizations doing things in this field as well. We must continue this, and that's when we can truly make this country wonderful. And of course, cleanliness is also very important. So I'd like to end this presentation because of the lack of time with a very beautiful verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which explains the principles of life in a very simple manner. You'll also get these principles in the Tirukkural, but the Bhagavad Gita puts it in a very concise way, so let me put this through. Shri Bhagavan Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi Dhanam Damascha Yajñascha Swadhyayastapa Arjavam Ahimsa Satyamakrodha Tyaga Shantirapaishunam Daya Bhuteshvaloluptvam Mardavam Hirachapalam Tejah Kshama Dhritishaucham Adroho Natimanita Bhavanti Sampadam Devi Abhichatasya Bharata. So, the verse is very clear when it talks about what are the principles that we must lead in life, in our individual lives as well as in society. The first principle is abhayam, fearlessness. There should not be any fear when doing the right thing. When we're doing the right thing, when we are protecting our people, when we are protecting the weak, when we are protecting the poor, when we are protecting our civilization, there should be no fear of any sort of negative consequences. One should carry out one's duty. That's what the Bhagavad Gita says. Sattva samshuddhihi. At every stage, one should reflect upon one's inner peace and ask the conscience. Keep strengthening the inner self. That is called sattva samshuddhihi. Jnana yoga vyavasthitihi. While one is progressing materially in terms of economically or socially, one should also progress spiritually. That has always been the spirit of Bharata. It's not just about progressing economically, which of course is important, but also progressing from within. Dhanam, charity, and giving what is excess in one's hand to society. That I'm sure a lot of you here are doing and will continue to be doing in the future. It helps society a lot, but it has to be targeted and in the right manner. Secondly, damaha, self-control, yajñam, sacrifice. Sacrifice is not just doing a homam. A homam is also a form of sacrifice. A lot of people do it. But sacrifice is giving up something that might cause harm to others. That is a basic form of sacrifice. Giving up something to make oneself stronger is a secondary form of sacrifice. That is called yajñam. Swadhyaya is education, studies, advanced knowledge, and constantly acquiring knowledge. Every one of us, irrespective of age, must constantly try to acquire knowledge. Every single day and every single hour as much as possible. Arjavam, straightforwardness. Straightforwardness is very important. Only straightforward societies are predictable, and only predictable societies in general in terms of the economy prosper in the longer run. And the next concept is ahimsa, non-violence. Non-violence is a wonderful concept, yet it is misunderstood. Ahimsa has been spoken of as the paramo dharma, the most important dharma for society. Dharma is basically aram. Dharma is principles. Dharma does not mean religion. People have misinterpreted it these days. The true meaning of dharma is principles. And ahimsa is the highest of these principles. Ahimsa means non-violence and avoiding harming any individual, any life form for one's personal gratification. However, for the protection of the weaker, if one has to use violence, that is not ahimsa. That is in fact ahimsa. If you have to protect the poor, if you have to protect the weak, if you have to protect those who depend on you, that is basically ahimsa in itself. Protecting others from violence is also ahimsa. Satyam, truthfulness, akrodhaha, not being angry, tyagaha, renouncing that which is bad for yourself, that which is bad for your country. So any activity that is bad for yourself, your society, your civilization, your family and your country overall should be renounced. This is what the Bhagavad Gita tells us. Shantihi, peace. Peace is peace is basically the progenitor of prosperity. And hence we must adhere to peace at every point of time. Apaishunam, avoiding gossip and unnecessary waste of time. We must utilize our time. Even the great sage Thiruvalluvar in the very first few chapters of the Tirukkural clearly says that gossiping or wasting time is absolutely not beneficial to society. It is a total net waste of time for humanity. We must rather engage in productive discussions that can transform the country. We must engage in spiritual discussions in something that can help us elevate the mind rather than degrading the mind. These are some principles that we can live by as a society to transform ourselves. Daya bhuteshu, being compassionate towards other living beings. It is 2025. We need not slaughter other living beings for our own personal benefit. It is an age of technological progress wherein our morals are completely transformed. And as the great sage Thiruvalluvar says, there is no need to kill other living beings for us to progress. We can progress rapidly. We have enough food, we have enough nutrition as a society. Without killing other living beings unnecessarily, we can progress amazingly. So this is another thing the Gita as well as our Tamil scriptures tell us about. So this is another beautiful principle. Shaucham, cleanliness, a very important thing that at the moment, unfortunately, our country is lacking. However, in the last 10 years, we are seeing great improvement in this space, and I hope this continues. So cleanliness is another factor. And these are the qualities and the principles that we must live by. There are several more, but because of the shortage of time, I'm unable to explain it here. I would strongly recommend every one of you to read the Tirukkural, to read the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures and gain inspiration from this to move forward into our future. And to summarize today's discussion, Bharata has experienced several centuries of decline, and now, exactly in 2020, there is a transformation and we shall experience great prosperity. We must gear up for it, we must prepare for it, we must prepare our civilization for it, and I'm 100% sure that we will be able to achieve it with these principles as our guiding force. So thank you all for listening to me today, and Nandri, Vanakkam, Jai Shri Krishna.
Friends, Rotary District 3231 proudly presents Rotary Nobel Award to our today's speaker, Mr. Abhigya Anand, for the world's youngest astrologer who predict COVID. It was a wonderful session in honor of his address here in this conference. Rotary District 3231 presents this award to Mr. Abhigya Anand.